Why, hello. So today I'm going to be making my first recipe video. This is a shout out to the Jaroudi family, as this is based on their bread recipe. It is just 4 simple ingredients. We've got whole wheat flour, yeast, some type of seasoning, and 2 cups of hot water. Now, let me tell you, I'm doing a couple of different flavors that some people may not like. I'm doing sun-dried tomato, black garlic, and a 1/4 cup of gin. So let's get started. First thing you need is 3 cups of whole wheat flour. So we're going to measure that out. Oh, by the way, this is a 1.5 cup measuring cup. You're also going to need a 1/4 cup to knead this, but that's at a later step. Okay, we're going to make a well. And remember, this is whole wheat flour, not all purpose, and that's so that we can stay in that whole food plant-based. We're going to need a 1/4 teaspoon of active yeast. Now, make sure it's active yeast and not nutritional yeast. And those of you who do whole food plant-based, you know the difference. Okay, I like to give that just a little bit of a stir, just to make sure that yeast kind of gets everywhere. Okay, then we're going to add the sun-dried tomatoes and the black garlic. If you notice, I've already diced them up. Now, the reason why I add these now is the black garlic and the sun-dried tomatoes are a little tacky, so getting them in the dry allows them to get coated with some flour so that they spread a little better through your bread, and you don't get a big, huge, giant mouthful of sun-dried tomato or black garlic. Okay, I think that is pretty good there. We're going to add water first, and this is 1 3/4 cups of water. And then, you know, let's get this mixed in just a little bit. I know it seems like a lot. The water is at 110 to 115 degrees. You don't want it boiling, because if it's boiling, it will kill your yeast. And, well, we know that wouldn't be any good. This is going to look like a wet dough, and it is a wet dough. Now this is the gin. Obviously, you know, you don't have to have the gin. I like the flavor of the botanicals in the gin. Now, I am unique in that, in a lot of cases, there are a lot of people who don't like the flavor of gin. But I think it has a wonderful botanical flavor. The juniper berries, especially in bread, really come out when you cook them. So as you can see, this is a rather wet dough, but that's okay. It'll all work out. For one, those sun-dried tomatoes will absorb some of the liquid. And we're just trying to get it all together. As you can see, there's still a pocket or two. Alright, I think we're good here. So go ahead and we don't want to leave anything out. Okay, so now we're going to take this and we're going to cover it with a damp towel. And we're going to let this rise in a warm place for 3 hours. At the end of the 3 hours, we will turn it out, get that other 1/4 cup of flour, and we're going to knead it and bring it all together one last time. So take one last look at it. Yes, it's a wet dough, and it's going to at least double in size, so be ready for that. And now we're going to set it in a warm place. Okay, so here it is on top of the refrigerator. And you know, that's my idea of a warm place, because it's probably one of the warmest in my kitchen. I do know that some of you are probably noticing the red thing around it, and well, as I've mentioned in several videos, I'm a little bit on the retentive side of things, shall we say. So that is to actually hold the damp towel up so it doesn't dip into and possibly get on the bread when it rises. I know, it's just the way I am. I can't help it. But we're going to let that sit there for 3 hours. So, you know, we'll come back to it when it gets done. Okay, I know some of you are probably thinking right about now, you know, I don't have 3 hours that I can sit here and watch this bread rise. Well, I've got good news for you. You don't have to watch it. I personally set a timer and go to the store, do some laundry, maybe watch something off of the YouTubes, because, well, I like the YouTubes. But yeah, I'm not gonna, you know, the last thing you want to do is actually take that towel off the top of the bowl, because that's kind of holding in the moisture. Actually, that is what it's doing, is holding in the moisture. And it's also holding in some of that temperature from the 110 degree water that you put in there. Keeps it warm for a little bit longer. Now, where I put it on top of my refrigerator is gonna be somewhere around the neighborhood of 77, 78 degrees. So since I have it there, you know, that's going to let the yeast be a little more active than if I were to put it in my pantry, which sits at about 73, 74 degrees. So you get a better rise, a more consistent rise. With the flavors that are in there, if you've never had sun-dried tomatoes, I love them. Absolutely love them. They've got a sweetness to them. The ones that I bought for this and the ones that I've been buying and I prefer are the ones that are not stored in oil. Now that I've gone whole food plant-based, that's even more important, is to make sure that I have the ones that are not stored in oil. On the other hand, the black garlic, I found that at Costco's. I have not seen it the last 2 times that I went to Costco's. But that is, if you've never used black garlic, it is sticky and tacky. And that's why I added it to the flour and stirred it in with the flour, so that it helps coat it and it helps separate it so it spreads throughout the bread. You can add a tablespoon of miso to this to give it some saltiness. That's one thing when you dehydrate tomatoes, or you sun-dry tomatoes, is they get a sweetness to them. And same thing, believe it or not, with that black garlic, because black garlic is a dehydrated / fermented garlic. Once again, I know my flavors are not for everybody, but when the Jaroudi family makes it, and when I made it the past 2 times, I used Italian seasonings, about a tablespoonful, and I also used about a half a teaspoon of granulated garlic. Turned out wonderful. I have added a couple of dashes before of Bragg's amino to give it a little bit of saltiness. Definitely not needed on this one, and I prefer to actually use the miso than the Bragg's amino. And on top of that, I try not to, because you saw how wet of a dough it is, I definitely try not to add any additional items that are moist or wet. If you don't like that word, I'm sorry. Specifically, I don't add any fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. I have been known to add dehydrated onions. I have been known to add some olives that have been kind of dried on a towel overnight. Kalamata olives, to be specific. Really loved those. Oh my goodness. But I didn't have any today. And I wanted to make this video because a coworker of mine asked me about breads. And I basically, informed her that when I buy breads, I buy Ezekiel. But since the Jaroudi family put this recipe out there, this has really been my go-to. I want to say I make a loaf at least every other week. I wrap it in saran wrap, keep it in the refrigerator because there are no preservatives in it. So you want to make sure of that you take caution of that. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to take a Dutch oven. We are going to line it with parchment paper, or get a piece of parchment paper big enough to fit inside of it, and totally inside of it. We're going to stick it in the oven when we start to get preheat the oven to 450 degrees. Yes. When we get closer to that point, I'll give you all the rest as far as the time of cooking, because I want to say you cook it. Nope, not going to guess. Not going to guess. We'll talk about that when we get closer. Okay, I changed my mind. Part of that is I want to make sure to get the information out to you. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the Dutch oven, put it in the stove, preheat the stove to 450 degrees. When the stove is ready, that's when you want to start to knead the dough. The reason being is you're only going to knead the dough for about 1 to 2 minutes. If your oven's like mine, it takes a while to get up to 450 degrees. Normally, because I have an electric oven and it takes some time to get up to 450, I will actually start to preheat the oven about 40 minutes, half an hour, we'll say half an hour, before I get ready to knead the dough. From there, we're going to put the parchment paper in the Dutch oven. Actually, we're going to put the parchment paper in the bowl. Knead the dough, put the dough on the parchment paper inside the bowl, pick it up as one piece, drop it inside the Dutch oven, put the lid on it, and stick it in the oven for 30 minutes. At the end of the 30 minutes, you're going to take the lid off, give it about another 10. You will be very, very surprised about how this turns out. I haven't had a soggy bottom. I've had a great bake. every time I've done this recipe. Great bake for me. Is it a professional baking level? Probably not. But I'm not a professional baker. I'm an IT guy who likes to think he's a gamer and is just enjoying an adventure. So this is what it looks like. Does that not look amazing? Let's pull this out. Yeah, you get some burnt bits in the bottom. That's because I put in the parchment paper. In the bowl. But look at that. Is that not pretty? We're going to let that cool. Then we'll slice it open and have some. Not sure you'll be around when I slice it open. But I'll take pictures.